In December of 2023, the people of Argentina elected right-wing populist Javier Milei as their president. He first achieved fame in Argentina as a vulgar economist who would appear on TV programs, eventually transitioning into a political career. Milei gained popularity through a presidential campaign in which he promised to burn down the central bank and legalize the sale of human organs. But whether or not this man will save Argentina from economic collapse, I'm not here to talk about his politics. I know it's hard to believe from his normal and well-kept appearance, but Javier Milei has a rather strange personal life. Long before he stepped into politics, Milei was the lead singer in a Rolling Stones cover band, which may give us some idea of what kind of hairstyle he's going for. This hairstyle has earned him the nickname El Peluca, meaning the wig, which is a lot more flattering than his other nickname, El Loco. His first dip into politics was dressing up as a character he created, called General Anarcho-Capitalism, which just sounds like Captain America in his rebellious teenage years. Milei is a self-described instructor of neotantra, which is essentially Hinduism if it was much hornier. He's also a big supporter of the social movement Free Love. He once said, "I am 47 years old and I participated in several sexual threesomes, and 90% of the time it was 2 women with me." And I wouldn't be surprised if that was just him replying to the question, "How are you doing?" As part of his experiences with neotantra, Milei says that he sometimes goes 3 months without ejaculating. And while we can all admire the time saving, Lord only knows what presidential decisions he'll make after 90 days of pent-up sexual frustration. When he was asked about these things, Milei replied, "I will not be apologizing for having a penis, although it would have been much weirder if he did." That being said, he might need to apologize when he inevitably has to take a day off for his quarterly ejaculation. So now that we've taken an intimate look at his sexual preferences, let's discuss Javier Milei's weird history with dogs. In 2004, Milei adopted a 200-pound English mastiff who he named Conan, after the film Conan the Barbarian, just in case you thought he was naming the dog after an American late-night talk show host. Over time, Milei and Conan became quite close, to the point that one biographer said that Milei viewed Conan as literally his son, and the biographer's use of the word literally says quite a lot. But it doesn't say as much as Milei himself, who described Conan as his true and greatest love. And if that still isn't strange enough, Milei reportedly insists that he and Conan have known each other for 2,000 years. He believes they met in previous lives, when he was a Roman gladiator and Conan was a lion in the Colosseum. And apparently Gladiator Milei and Lion Conan refused to fight each other all those centuries ago, because they knew they were destined to join forces in the future. So if you thought your friend's Instagram page for their dog was bad, at least they're not crafting elaborate fan fiction about meeting their pet in an ancient Roman duel. Since the two of them had such a bond, you can only imagine how devastated Milei was when Conan died in 2017. In the midst of mourning, he visited a psychic medium and supposedly had a conversation with Conan from beyond the grave. And it wasn't just a friendly catch-up, because Conan supposedly told Milei that it was God's mission for him to run for president, meaning Milei's victory has ushered in a divine right of Argentine presidents. But the Conan saga does not end there. It seems Milei decided that communicating with his dead dog through a psychic medium was not sustainable, so he instead flew to the United States and paid $50,000 to clone Conan. What resulted was not 1 dog, but 5. So Milei named one of them Conan and named the other ones after American economists who he admires. One was named after Milton Friedman, one was named after Murray Rothbard, and 2 were named after Robert Lucas Jr., who conveniently brings 2 first names to the table. Milei does not distinguish between the OG Conan and the clone Conan, viewing them as the same dog. And while that clone is obviously his favorite, he loves all 5 of his dogs dearly. So much so that when Milei finished first in the primaries, he thanked his dogs before anyone else, referring to them as his 4-legged children. And when he won the presidency, the first thing he posted on Instagram was this AI-generated image of him and his dogs, calling it his family album. I don't know why it's stylized like a Pixar movie, but that's far from the weirdest part of this. Obviously, there's nothing inherently wrong with a guy who loves his dogs, although a guy who cloned his dog and talked to him beyond the grave is dipping into peculiar territory. But still, Milei's relationship with his dogs gets even more bizarre, because it turns out he uses them as his personal advisors. According to the same biographer, Milei, quote, is convinced that the dogs advise him in different areas. One in politics, another in economics, another gives him general advice. In other words, his dogs are not only his children, but also his presidential cabinet. And you just know the general advice dog is racked with guilt whenever a 6-leg parlay that he recommended doesn't hit. When confronted about the dog cabinet, Milei simply replied, "What is it they say, that my dogs determine my strategies, yes? That they are like a strategic committee? They are the best strategic committee in the world. Tell me, when has an outsider achieved what we achieved in 2 years? If so, they are the best political analysts in the world. And honestly, when you put it that way, it's kind of hard to argue with. Still, it's not exactly comforting to know that Argentina is effectively being run by 5 English mastiffs, even if they are excellent decision makers. Thankfully, the dogs are not the only ones who influence Milei's decisions, as he is also quite close with his sister Karina. She was his campaign manager and reportedly oversees her brother's daily life. Her brother calls her El Jefe, which means the boss, except it's the male form of the word for some reason. Argentine law prevents the president from appointing family members to positions of power, but Milei modified that law on his very first day and then made his sister the general secretary of the presidency. But there are certainly worse positions she could have, as Milei originally said that he was going to make his sister the first lady. Now that's what I call free love. It doesn't help that both Milei and his sister aren't married. Speculation about the two of them got so intense in Argentina that Milei himself had to deny that he has sex with his sister. Glad we got that cleared up. Milei has recently begun dating actress Fatima Flores, perhaps partly to cover up the incest allegations. I'm guessing the General Advice dog gave him that tip. It's just a shame that the couple can only have sex once every 3 months before Milei has to recharge his testicles. Now, I really can't tell you if Javier Milei is the savior that Argentina needs. Some people believe the country could benefit from an outsider to reset their political system, while others will tell you that Milei's politics are only going to make things worse. But whether you support him or not, perhaps we can all agree on one thing. He's weird. Now please consider subscribing, or I'll pay 50 grand to clone you and make the clone subscribe instead.